because you can harden your heart. You may never have another moment like this in your whole life. You come. There may never be a thing like this in New York again. You come now. Now is the time. We're going to wait another moment or two on you.
And Shannon Bream is up next with a fantastic show. Miss Shannon.
A beautiful ending. Thank you, Laura. Here's what we've got coming up tonight. Governor Mike Huckabee weighs in on the debate over guns and where we are in our culture as the president listens to students demanding action and religious leaders wonder where is the discussion over individual responsibility and morality in the classroom. Acting ICE Director Thomas Homan fires another shot at California, ground zero for what some are calling a civil war over illegal immigration. And he wasn't just America's pastor, he was pastor to the world and to presidents. Pastor Jonathan Falwell on how the Reverend Billy Graham changed the face of evangelism. Hello and welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Shannon Bream in Washington. Tonight, the voices of grieving students, parents, and educators demanding solutions, and the commander-in-chief listening. Just 1 week after 17 people in a South Florida school were killed by a gunman many say they knew was troubled and violent. Survivors took their demands for new gun controls and new security measures to the state capitol in Tallahassee as President Trump held what the White House billed as a listening session that turned into an open exchange of ideas and emotion. Team coverage tonight, Ellis and Barbara, on what happened here in Washington today and what's planned for a big conservative conference tomorrow. Trace Gallagher examining some of the claims and counterclaims that have fueled the emotional debate. But first, to Parkland, where correspondent Brian Yennis is standing by with the very latest on the students' stories. Brian.
Good evening, Shannon. Well, the memorial out here of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School continues to grow this evening. Photos, crosses, candles continue to be added here, honoring the 17 victims who were gunned down just a week ago. 14 students and 3 faculty members who were gunned down here at this high school. And what a draining week it has been. Not only are they mourning, but they're also taking action. Late last night, 3 buses carrying about 100 students traveled 7 hours north to Tallahassee, the state capitol, in which they talked to state legislators, trying to pressure them to enact stricter gun control laws swiftly, while the students walked all over the Capitol building, making emotional pleas with legislators. On Tuesday, the Florida House voted down a move to debate a measure that would have outright banned all assault weapons in the state. The vote enraged many, and a few thousand gun control activists, students, and parents protested outside the Capitol building today. Overall, the Douglas High students expressed frustration with the answers given to them by state lawmakers today.
We want to start a conversation. The most important thing that we want to do is have our legislators and governors at least speak to us about possible change.
To Congress, you are directly responsible for every community that is lost due to gun violence, and you have the power to change this. And if you don't, then we will change you.
We've been to many rooms, we've spoken to only a few legislators, and try as they might, the most we've gotten out of them is, we'll keep you in our thoughts, you are so strong, you are so powerful. We've heard enough of that. We've heard enough of, we are so strong, we are so powerful, because that is not why we are here today. We are not here to be patted on the back.
The students also met with Governor Rick Scott, who vowed that all options were on the table legislatively. Tonight, he tweeted, quote, "I met with students who came up from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High today. I look forward to putting out my proposal on Friday to keep students safe and prevent people with mental illness from getting guns." Meanwhile, teens nationwide walked out of schools in protest for the second day in a row in solidarity with Parkland, including about 40 schools in Florida. Many students walked to Douglas High. This as state Republican legislators say they're putting together a comprehensive reform bill that they hope to get out there within the next 3 weeks that can raise the age in which you can buy a rifle in Florida from 18 to 21, create a waiting period in which you need to wait to purchase a high-capacity gun, add more school security officers and mental health counselors. Well, today, the Broward County Sheriff said he's not waiting. He is arming his sheriffs with rifles, including AR-15s.
Our deputies who are qualified and trained will be carrying rifles on school grounds from this point forward. It will be done safely. Only deputies who have trained and qualified will carry those rifles. But we need to be able to defeat any threat that comes onto campus.
All of this as the funerals continue. Today, the athletic director, Chris Hickson, was buried today. He received military honors. He died protecting students here. All of this as we expect these buses from Tallahassee to arrive early this morning, about 3 a.m. Students will be embraced by their parents for what has been just an incredibly hard week for this entire community. Shannon.
Yeah, as we continue to hear more heroic stories of the people who were caught up in that mess a week ago. Brian, thank you. In the aftermath of Parkland, the president held an emotional listening session at the White House this afternoon. Today's speakers included survivors and family members of the victims of one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history. Ellison Barber joins us with that part of the story. Good to see you, Ellison.
Good to see you. They sat and they talked in the White House's state dining room. They talked about gun violence, and most of the people in that room had been personally impacted by a mass shooting inside of a school.
There were families and students from Stoneman Douglas High School.
My daughter I'm not going to see again. She's not here. She's at King David Cemetery.
Parents of students who went to Sandy Hook.
He was 7 years old.
They all called for change and asked for the president's help, but they didn't all ask for one specific policy. Some said it's time to ban AR-15 weapons. Others said teachers should carry guns. Some said more needed to be done in regards to mental health. Many said schools need more security, TSA-like checkpoints. All said something needs to be done, and more people need to listen to each other.
It doesn't even feel like a week. I want to feel safe at school.
These deaths are preventable, and I implore you, consider your own children. You don't want to be me. No parent does. And you have the ability to make a difference and save lives today. Please don't waste this.
The president listened and asked for suggestions.
Woke up to the news that my best friend was gone, and I don't understand why I could still go in a store and buy a weapon of war.
He didn't say exactly when policy might come, but said he's looking at many things.
If you had a teacher who was adept at firearms, they could very well end the attack very quickly. And the good thing about a suggestion like that, and we're going to be looking at it very strongly. It's very difficult, it's very complex, but we're going to find a solution. In addition to everything else, in addition to what we're going to do about background checks, we're going to go very strong into age of purchase, and we're also going to go very strong into the mental health aspect.
In less than 24 hours, CPAC, the major conservative conference, is set to begin just outside of D.C. The NRA is one group sponsoring the event. A spokesperson with the NRA confirmed to Fox News this evening that Wayne LaPierre is speaking at the conference. But when CPAC released their schedule of speakers, LaPierre wasn't on the list.
LaPierre is the CEO and executive vice president of the NRA. Sources say CPAC isn't publicly saying exactly when LaPierre is speaking, at least at this point, because they're concerned about protest. As for the president, he said more than once he'd be looking at strengthening background check laws. He did not say to what extent or when. Shannon?
All right, thank you for wrapping that up, Ellison. All right, since the shooting began to unfold, news has been breaking around the clock, and emotions are understandably running high. But in the scramble to come to grips with the tragedy and to push for some reforms, numerous false news reports and conspiracy theories have emerged from across the political spectrum. Trace Gallagher is here to do some fact-checking. Good evening, Trace.
Good evening, Shannon. Let's begin with CNN's Chris Cuomo, who promoted a 2-year-old false news story, then lied to cover it up. Cuomo retweeted the headline of a 2016 article reading, quote, "I was able to buy an AR-15 in 5 minutes. I'm 20 and my ID is expired." The tweet caught fire, except it's not true. The 20-year-old was never allowed to purchase an AR-15, and when Cuomo was called out, he responded, quoting again, "Isn't the point that the kid's age and lack of ID wasn't a deterrent? And this isn't all gun shops. Place I bought my shotgun basically goes farther than the law requires and makes judgments about whom to sell to. Point is, the system should be better." But actually, that's not the point, at least according to the National Review's Charles Cook. He quotedly says, "The point is that the kid lied about buying a gun that he didn't, and that you are now lying too." And speaking of untruths, we have been hearing for days that so far in 2018, there have been 18 school shootings. There have not been. The number, which comes from a gun control group co-founded by former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, includes 7 shootings outside of school hours and 4 shootings off school grounds, where the only person hurt was a man who committed suicide inside his car near a school. Yet the number 18 has been used by CBS, ABC, MSNBC, and is a leading search term on Google. The number is important because gun control groups use it to lobby support for stricter gun laws. Finally, after eloquently making his case to stop gun violence during several media interviews, Parkland High School student David Hogg was the victim of a smear campaign when several YouTube videos went viral claiming Hogg was not a Stoneman Douglas student, but rather a, quote, crisis actor, hired to exploit the tragedy and further a liberal agenda, none of which is true. Here he is today with Harris Faulkner. Watch.
We're sick and tired of the promises of politicians that they're going to send their prayers and their condolences when we have no action. And that's why you're hearing those cheers behind me. Those are calls to action by the American people saying we are not being represented and we are not going to take this anymore.
YouTube has issued an apology for classifying the videos as trending and has since removed them. Shannon.
Trace, always good to separate fact from fiction in these very emotional times. Thank you very much. Lost in the calls for new gun laws and government solutions are questions raised by many who argue that further restricting our constitutional rights won't necessarily solve the problem, and that in a country founded on faith, the issues of moral and cultural decay need to be addressed as part of the broader conversation. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee is an ordained minister and joins us now from Florida. Good to see you, Governor.
Thank you, Shannon. It's been a tough day, and watching those kids and their parents at the White House today, gut-wrenching for every American, and I feel like that the president did us all a great service by opening that for the world to see.
Mm-hmm. And you have been through this before as governor of Arkansas when there was a school shooting that took many lives there as well. So you've experienced this firsthand. I mean, how do you walk through that, the grief, the anger, the questions about how to fix it?
Everybody wants to get it fixed. And I remember the thing that was said over and over, just as it has been, whether it's Sandy Hook or whether it's what happened in Parkland, Florida, is we've got to do something. And frankly, sometimes people say we want to do something, even if the something doesn't really fix anything. I understand that. Emotions and the pain and the agony people are going through is so intense, and it's so very real. And you've got to respect